What is up, everybody? We are back here at King Film Sports for the NFL Week 5 predictions and betting locks here, as we had another great week, especially good for our betting locks, getting us back in the green for the season. So first here, we will run through a recap of some of these games that we had action on, starting out with the Thursday night game. Now, you see I had the Giants +5 here. In the Discord, I gave out 5.5. It's just easier for me to give the square number on this graphic here without much space. So grade that as a win for the Giants. I think they deserved that cover, played well all game, just could not convert in the red zone, and then we get lucky there with the Brett Maher miss late. But I think you still should have covered if you were on the Cowboys, because you had 4s and 4.5s for some of the week, or at least a push on either side at the 5 number. Then I did add the Falcons in the Discord -2.5, just a disgusting beat that they only won by 2 there. But quite frankly, they just did not deserve to win this game, as I think that they were worse. They had a big special teams play early on that led to a touchdown, then they had a pick 6 later on. And they were winning for most of the game, then gave up the lead late, and then come back with a coup 58-yarder for the win, but definitely a fraudulent win at that for Atlanta there. And then going down the board here, we had the Jaguars plus the 6 points. This one should have covered easily. I think the Jaguars should have won this game, to be honest, but of course they end up choking it late. They were up 3 points and had the ball on the 1-yard line of the Texans. Had the chance for the dagger, but Trevor Lawrence comes up short on a QB draw. Interesting play call there. Then CJ Stroud leads the Texans down for a touchdown. So they're up by 4, and then a pitchy woo-woo lateral play almost ends in disaster as player gets tackled in the end zone, but the tackle started at the 1-yard line, so we end up cashing a win there. Everyone on the Jaguars should have covered there. Rough beat for those who are on the Texans. Then Steelers at Colts. I took the Steelers at a good number, got some line movement, played the Colts back for a half unit once I got the +2.5 there. So a little bit of hedge saved us there, as I just realized that the Steelers, they were due for some regression in this game. Boy, this Colts defense just really ran down the field, got a big lead early on with Richardson. Then Richardson got injured. They were still able to move the ball with Joe Flacco. But I was also impressed with the Steelers offense, as they made a good comeback effort, almost tied this game, only lost by 3 points there. So Justin Fields, some good takeaways for that Steelers offense there. Then the Broncos plus the 8 points. This one was never a doubt here. I know the Jets were up 6-0 at halftime, but the Broncos, although they couldn't really manage any offense, were completely dominant on defense there. Got, I think, 5 sacks on Rodgers and the Jets offense. Jets offense never looked good throughout this whole game, and the Broncos end up winning outright. A couple missed kicks late for both teams, and the Broncos steal the win in the torrential downpour. Weather definitely played to the Broncos' advantage, but the Jets are the home team there. They've got to be able to play in those inclement conditions at MetLife, and they just could not handle it there. Then we had the Eagles -2. The line moved against us on this one. I think it closed at a pick. I mean, at game time, I just was not confident in this Eagles team because of the injuries, and it was a Tampa Bay bounce back spot, second straight week on the road for the Eagles, and they just got trounced. Made a little bit of a comeback effort here, but the vibes are just off for this Philadelphia team. Jalen Hurts not playing very well, and the Bucs looked absolutely dominant there at a blowout win. Then going down the board here, Chargers +8. Definitely should have won this game outright, but you just can't bet it against the Chiefs on the money line here, because they will always win these games, battered with injuries here. And I know the Chargers also have their fair share of injuries. I think if Herbert is healthy, the Chargers certainly have a great chance to win this game. I mean, damn near did anyway. But Chiefs, yeah, without Pacheco, now without Rashee Rice, as Mahomes ends up taking him out there, done for the season with the ACL injury, and down a couple other players there. Their O-line isn't playing great, so a lot of problems with this Chiefs team, but yes, they are 4-0. Then we get to the Ravens -2 against the Bills. This was just a hammer spot for me. Regression special. Ravens were better than 1-2, and the Bills 3-0. Yes, did look very impressive, but they did not play a tough schedule in the early part of the season. But even I did not expect it to be a 25-point game. I thought the Bills would play better there. Ravens got some turnover luck, and Bills apparently just did not want to tackle Derrick Henry there. So interesting. And then we got to the Monday night game. Line moved against us here, and I was pretty scared at game time when the Dolphins announced they were starting Tyler Huntley. But lucky for us, the Miami offense was still very bad, and Will Levis actually gets injured there. And he already had a horrible interception, just throwing it right to a defensive player's chest in the first quarter. But after he got injured, Titans just ran the ball. Mason Rudolph was just the game manager, no game-losing mistakes, and the Titans end up winning that one there. So compiling all of the plays and player props from the Discord this week, we were up 5 units. We had a disastrous week 3. So we were able to get back in the green, but only up 0.3 units for the season. We want to be much better than this, and I think we will get back in the green week 5 and run up that betting lock record. And the game picks still 36-28, 10-6 last week. Not great. I definitely want to have some better records there, so we'll see. But as I've mentioned this entire season, I've had a lot of close spreads and a lot of upsets, so we'll look to improve that as well. So now we get to the Week 5 slate here, and we've got a very interesting Thursday night NFC South divisional battle between the Bucs and the Falcons here. As I mentioned, Tampa Bay looks great at home last week against the Eagles. Atlanta gets the fraudulent victory against New Orleans, but For those reasons, I think that the Falcons bounce back here on this short week, have a sense of urgency. This is the last of a 3-game homestand. They're down a game in the division to the Buccaneers. And overall, I just think they're the better team slightly. I think Kirk Cousins has been playing better here, although he was stifled against the New Orleans defense last week. I think the Tampa Bay defense is slightly worse, and I do not think that Baker Mayfield will be able to run up the stats like he did last week against the Eagles team. I just think that this is a desperation spot here for the Falcons, so give me them to win this one at home there. Next on Sunday, we get to the London game, and this is our first betting lock of the week. Give me the Vikings minus the 2.5 here against the Jets. I know this might appear like it's square because the Vikings are the 4-0 team, and the Jets just looked horrible at 2-2, but I just do not think that this line is correct. I think that seeing these two offenses play here, the line should be above 3 or at least 3 here, so I think the value is all with Minnesota, and I don't put too much credence into that second half here for the Minnesota Vikings because it was kind of like that Alabama-Georgia game where you take your foot off the gas pedal. You're just managing a big lead there, although it did get cut to I think 2 points late. That was slightly concerning for the Vikings defense, but they did get a few takeaways against Jordan Love there. And I think that this Jets team, in their 4 results, they've only played well in one game, and that was against the Patriots. The other win against the Titans was very ugly, probably should have lost that one, and then looked horrible against the Niners and horrible against the Broncos there. So I don't think going over to London is going to change much. Maybe the offense looks slightly better, and maybe Minnesota regresses slightly, but the Vikings have been so much better. I think you've got to take Minnesota in this one. Next, we get to the Carolina Panthers at the Chicago Bears, and this one, I'm going to be taking the Panthers plus the 4 points. I just think that this spread should be under a field goal, as this Bears team, I know they did beat the Rams last week, but it was not a great showing there. Very ugly win for them at home here. Just overall tough for Caleb. I know he did look decent in the second half, and they were able to run the ball, and the Panthers defense got shredded by the Bengals, but I do think that that Bengals team was in a desperation spot being 0-3 there in a must-win game, and I thought that the Panthers offense looked pretty good there. So I know that this Bears defense is good, but I think that the Panthers will be able to put up at least 17 to 20 points, and I just don't know about Caleb in this spot. Will they get the running game working again against Carolina? That is the question here, and I do think that the Panthers will make Caleb make some plays here, and I don't know that he's going to be able to make them, so I definitely think close game here. Give me the Panthers to win outright as well, get a big upset victory in Chicago. Next year, we get to another betting lock here, divisional battle, Ravens and Bengals, and two teams at worse records than we thought, 2-2 and 1-3 respectively going into this matchup. Give me the Bengals plus the 3 points. Now, I don't think we should sell our stock completely in this Baltimore Ravens team. They did look great last week, but I think that they are slightly being overvalued here. This one still is in Cincinnati, and I do think that this Bengals defense has been very concerning thus far, but I do think that they have the answers when it comes to Lamar Jackson. I think that they will slow him down just a little bit. I do not think that the Ravens will eclipse 30 points in this one, and then this Bengals offense has been completely cooking here. I know they're going against a tough Baltimore defense, but I do think that Burrow and this Bengals offense and that running game that they established last week will be cooking in this one, and they will challenge this Ravens team. So I ultimately think it's very close either way. Could see the Ravens winning by the 3 points, but we have that safety net behind us. But ultimately, I do think that the Bengals get an upset victory. I think they're going to be the more desperate team going into this matchup, so I think they win that one out right there. Next, Buffalo at Houston. 2 3-1 teams. Maybe both are paper tigers at this point, just because the Buffalo Bills got exposed last week in Baltimore, and Houston got exposed 2 weeks ago in Minnesota and then didn't look great against Jacksonville last week at home. In this matchup, I'm going to take the Bills here. This is the second leg of a road trip, which I never really like, but being that they got blown out last week on national television, I think that it's a big bounce back spot for them, whereas Houston just kind of got rewarded for a lackluster effort. Yes, Stroud had the drive late, but there's some problems for this Houston team. I think they're a little bit worse than we saw at the end of last season here. So give me this Bills team. I think that this Texans defense especially is overrated, and Stroud is making a few mistakes that we are not accustomed to from last season. So I do think that this Bills team, specifically their defense, will rise to the occasion in this one, but no betting lock there. Next, we get to the Colts at the Jags, and this is just a must-win game for the Jags. Give me the Jags minus 2.5. And I know that they are 0-4, last winless team. Who would have thunk it? It is the Jacksonville Jaguars, but just adding to the intensity for this team. They've only had one game at home thus far. That was the ugly showing against the Browns. So I think it's a must-win game here in the division. The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in, I think, 10 years. And Anthony Richardson out in this matchup. It's going to be Joe Flacco. Now, Flacco, as we saw last season, isn't a slouch. He's actually a decent backup quarterback at this point. But I think that the Jags offense was decent last week. Not quite opportunistic enough. I think that they're going to have to be better in the red zone here, but I think that they will be. And I think there are plays to be made against this Colts defense, definitely. So give me this Jags team. I think it could potentially be a blowout victory for them as they need it, or else their season is over going to 0-5 there. So give me the Jags to cover the 2.5. Next, we get to Miami at New England. Not a lot to say here between these two struggling teams. I think that the Dolphins, after looking horrible on Monday night, just will be a little bit more desperate than the New England team that has probably just accepted their fate as one of the worst teams in the league here with Jacoby Brissett. I think that Snoop Huntley will look a bit better with a full week of practice with the number ones here and some starting experience for this new Miami system under Mike McDaniel here. It was very ugly, but I think that their defense will play better as they're just playing this New England offense who can't do much there. And ultimately, I think that McDaniel is the better head coach than Gerard Mayo there. So I think that they go into New England and win a tough one there. Final game of the early slate here, and this one really depends on the line. So if you are able to get the Commanders at 3 or under, I would take the Commanders in the spot. I think that they do win this game, but it is a bit of a trap line because this Browns team is at their lowest all season here. I definitely think that they should have won that Raiders game with all the Raiders injuries and a couple huge mistakes in that matchup there in Las Vegas. So 1-3 here. This is a buy low spot on the Browns potentially if this spread inflates to 4 or 4.5, if we can get that there. And Jaden Daniels, this is definitely a sell high potentially if this spread does inflate, but I do love the way that this Commanders offense has been playing. Browns dealing with a few key injuries on their defense there, so I do think that Daniels will regress slightly in this game, but I do think that the Commanders still win it, and I think that Deshaun Watson will be able to make a couple plays here against this Commanders defense, who I think is a bit overrated. They got exposed against the Bengals, but still got away with it, and the Cardinals offense seems to be broken, so they were able to hold them to 14 points here, but ultimately I think this one is a very close game, but give me the Commanders to win it and cover the 3 there. Next, we get to a divisional battle, Las Vegas at Denver here. This one's pretty simple. Give me the Raiders plus the 3. I think that these two teams are relatively equivalent. I know that the Raiders are dealing with some injuries here, but Denver, backup quarterback who did nothing last week, and they still got the win. So give me the Raiders to win this one outright, as I think that Gardner Minshew is slightly better than Bo Nix. This Raiders defense is not great, but I think that Nix will force it into a couple windows here and get picked off. And I think that the Raiders, very opportunistic, always tend to win these games under Antonio Pierce. So give me the Raiders to win outright in Denver there. Give me the plus 3. Next, we get to the Niners and the Cardinals. This one's pretty simple. Give me the Niners minus the 7. Gave this one out on the Discord on Sunday night. Definitely take this at 7 or under here for this Niners team. I know they are very banged up, but they showed their potential in that Patriots game. They even had a few mistakes. They probably should have won that game by 30-plus points. And this Cardinals team, I think it's just broken. Their offense, after looking great in that Rams game like 3 weeks ago, looked horrible against the Lions, a Lions defense that isn't that good, only scored 10 points, and then only scored 14 against the Commanders defense. So I know that the Niners are dealing with some injuries, but I don't think that the Cardinals will eclipse 20 points based on recent performances. And then Purdy and this offense should get right against the Cardinals defense, who are not that good. They're also dealing with some injuries in their own right there. So definitely think this one has blowout potential here. I think that the Niners win this one big against a struggling Arizona team. Next, we get to the Packers at the Rams. Give me the Packers to win this one. I just think that this Rams team is on their last legs here. Stafford is doing all he can, but with this struggling O-line and not many weapons, it's just patchwork. And their defense also wasn't great there, letting the Bears run all over them in that second half. So I think that this Packers team, Jordan Love struggled. It was his first half back from the injury, but he got right in the second half there in spite of a couple mistakes. So I do think that the Packers will win this one in Los Angeles. If this line gets under 3, potentially 2, 2.5, then I could move on this Packers team because I do think they are primed for a bounce back, and this LA team is devastated by injuries. Next, we go to the Giants and the Seahawks. The spread is currently 6.5, but take it if it gets to 7 with this New York team as coming off of long rest. I know they are going to Seattle, and Seattle coming off of this Monday night game, a hard-fought game against Detroit there where they end up losing by 13. A lot of people were impressed by the Seahawks team. This is exactly what I expected coming into the season. They played close in the first 3 weeks, won all those 3 games. Then they play a real contender in the Lions, and their defense just does not show up. Yes, they did play decent, but I do not think that the Lions defense is great. So give me this Giants team. I think still slightly undervalued here. Going into a tough environment, we'll be able to muck it up here against the Seahawks team. So I just think that 7 is too many points in that one. I do not think that the Giants win outright, although they do have potential to. Although I am scared by that Malik Neighbors injury, that one is definitely something to monitor. Then we get to the Sunday night game between the Cowboys and the Steelers here. Give me the Steelers. Anything under a field goal in this game. I was impressed by what their offense did, and this Cowboys defense has looked really bad. So as long as they can convert in the red zone, Giants were not able to on Thursday Night Football. As long as they can do that, I think they win this game. And also Cowboys just undisciplined with these penalties. Steelers are definitely a more disciplined team under Mike Tomlin here. I know that the Cowboys are coming off of extra rest here, but second leg of an East Coast road trip here I think will be tough for them to deal with. And just too many holes on this Dallas roster, dealing with a few injuries. That offense just isn't right, and I think that the Steelers defense will play a lot better than they did in Indianapolis in that first half last week. So give me the Steelers in a bounce-back spot for them on Sunday Night Football at home. And then finally, we get to this Monday night game. Again, we are fading this Kansas City team, as I just think that the spread is too inflated. Give me the Saints plus the 6 points here. I know that the Saints have dealt with a couple injuries, but as I mentioned, they definitely deserve to win that game against Atlanta last week. I know Kansas City is a tough place to play on primetime here, but the Chiefs, with their injuries, they just can't blow anybody out. They have one way to win. They just need to grind it down. They need to rely on their defense. As long as Derek Carr is a game manager in this one, I think that they can run the ball against this Chiefs team. And then Mahomes, probably late in the fourth quarter, will come up with some magic here. The Chiefs will win this one by one possession. Hopefully it's not by 7. Hopefully it's just by a field goal. But I definitely think we thread that needle there. I think that the Chiefs win another close game. We'll see how many times they can keep doing this. Maybe they're primed just to get blown out in a game, or maybe they do blow out the Saints team, but I just cannot see that happening given the current circumstances. All of their injuries, no weapons. So give me the Saints team to cover the number on Monday night there. So with all that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Be sure to join the Betting Picks Discord there, as we absolutely cooked last week. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.